here today. We've had an overwhelming, a really exciting response to this webinar. I'm not sure that exciting is the right word actually, but I'll run with it for the time being in the absence of a better option. I'm excited to be able to provide something, I guess, that's on the minds of so many people, this whole notion of how do I keep it together. And I think that the imperative on keeping it together is about a communication imperative. It's about how you connect. It's about how you sustain connection as people start to head off into different locations. That's a really tricky one. And what I want to do today is to bring it down from a big, large, awkward, sticky and tricky problem into something really tangible and actionable. What I need to do around that, I guess, is first of all just frame up where I'm coming from here. So where I'm coming from here is that communication, I spoke to a communications expert once who said to me that there are 3 rules of communication, particularly in a crisis, and it's communicate, 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 even when you've got nothing to communicate. So presence is incredibly important. So I come from a point of view of saying that when it comes to being a leader who's communicating through crisis and through difficulty, keeping everybody together and keeping a sense of collective calm, keeping a sense of collective confidence in place is firstly about your presence. And then what I think we need to do is to shift to thinking a little bit around what's our proactive and what's our reactive strategy, and who are the cohorts that are best suited to that proactive and reactive approach. I think from a proactive point of view, that's when we think about our staff. So we need to think about how it is that we can sustain a level of connection that seems to exist in a lot of our schools. I've been just so impressed, just so, I don't know, it's warmed the heart, to be really honest with you, about the stories that I've heard from schools who say, you know what, my people are just incredible. Every principal, every assistant principal that I've spoken to in the last week or so has said something along the lines of, oh, my people have just been amazing. And what we want to do is to preserve that. So that's an act of proactive communication. It's about how can we be ready to make sure, even though, as the case may be now in Victoria, but as opposed to other places where some people are still at school, some people are about to go on holidays, some people are having holidays moved, some people will go into longer term shutdowns, some people will go into partial shutdowns. How do we navigate that? What we do is we come from a position of saying that we are going to be proactive around connection. And then the reactive work is with parents. So what we want to do here is to say the biggest risk that you face to morale in your school is criticism from stressed parents, from parents who are anxious, from parents who are worried. And usually what we need to do then is to understand what we need to do is to assuage their anxiety and their worry. Now, for most people, I always say that I believe that the greatest trigger of anxiety is the absence of a plan. So what we need to do is to send messages to our parents that say, we've got a plan, that we see you, that we hear anxiety, we hear your fear, and we are ready and responding to it. So that's kind of what sits behind both of those messages as we move forward today. I think that if we are proactive around communicating with staff, and if we are and understanding where they're coming from, and for them the imperative is very similar. We just want to see them, we want to hear their challenges, hear their fears. And then if we're reactive around making sure that we mitigate the risk, so that we don't have as much to react to in terms of our parents, then that's an incredibly powerful step. I'm going to move today from those big, I guess, overarching intentions behind the way I want to work with you today, down to the incredibly granular quickly. And then, if you would, I want to encourage you to stick around. There's a whole heap of things at the end of this webinar that I'm going to give you opportunity around, and I think that you'll find that there's some benefit. I certainly hope that you get a lot of benefit from the content today, but I do also hope that you stick around for the end, because there's a whole bunch of little add-ons today that I think will be valuable to you as you move forward. So the first thing I want to do is encourage you today to show some love, to get involved, to step up. There are a number of ways that you can do that. I have a little box in front of me that you probably don't have that's called a participant box. So I can kind of see you. So first of all, don't panic if you happen to be, you know, a Victorian school leader who's not at school today and is, you know, watching in pajamas and jocks or whatever the case may be. Don't panic. I can't actually see, but I can see your name. So if I look down the list here, I can see that, you know, this is a bit like the old, you know, if you're old like me, remember the Romper Room show. I can see Brendan in there. You know, I can see Eva. I can see Garth. I can see Kiralee. I can see Mitch. I can see Nicole. I can see Robin. You know, so I can see lots of people that are on the webinar today. And I want to encourage you that you're allowed to be a part of the webinar. So you're allowed to step up and have something to say. Now, there are two ways you can do that. One is that you can just sort of, you know, I think for a lot of there's like a little hand up option on your control panel there that you can use to say g'day to everyone. I can see Matt Corcoran raise his hand. He's always so shy, Matt. It's great to have you here, mate. And if you keep that hand up, Matt, so risk associated with that now, isn't there? If you keep that hand up, I've got a little button here that says allow to talk. So what I can do is to click that button, your microphone will become activated and we can have a little interaction. Now, I reckon that's valuable because I do firmly believe that if your question is relevant to your school, there's a ridiculously high likelihood that it's going to be relevant to other people's schools. So if you've got something you want to add, then just put that hand in the air. You press the same button to put your hand down, and we can interact that way. The other thing you can do if you're feeling a little shy, and I was feeling a bit shy today, I was talking to Simon about this before the webinar, that, you know, Amy's been awesome in that Amy goes dual screen. She shows the PowerPoint, but also her webcam, so you can see Amy speaking to you. I was a bit shy today because I've got a bit of bung eye. I've got sort of a dodgy sore eye at the moment that's coming good, but I look like I've done 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali. So I chose not to do that. So if you're also feeling a little shy, there's a chat box. So if you have a look, and if you step in there now, I can see that Mitch and Brendan have already used the chat. So is Anna Maria. They've already used the chat box. One little reminder, there tends to be, if you write something in the chat box, there's a little button at the bottom around who you're sending that to. And if you choose all panelists, it'll go to us. But if you choose all panelists and attendees, then everyone in the room will be able to see it. So I really want to encourage you to step in and be a part of that today. You know, g'day Joe, good to see you. We've got a Canberra and a former NT colleague in the room today. That's delightful to hear. Angela, thank you. Blocky, great to have the Cannonook crew on board again today. So just wonderful to see the chat box being used, and you'll hear me non-seamlessly, so there'll be gaps and awkwardness when I will go and have a little look over at the chat box and just see what's going on and see if there's anything I need to respond to. I'll stop occasionally and have a little bit of a gawk at the participant list to see if anyone's got their hand up, and we'll go from there. But I really want to encourage you to get involved wherever you can today. Hey, here's one frame that I want you to bring into today, and that is that today we're going to forget the kids. We're going to step away from thinking about students today, because from a leadership perspective, what we need to do is to deploy a little trust at times like this. We need to move our focus from being, well, you know, when there's a word for it in schools that gets used ad nauseum, the notion of being student-centered. We're not going to be student-centered today, because what we need to do is to be able to trust the other two key stakeholders who do have direct and constant contact with the students. And we're going to put our attention as school leaders into empowering them and doing things that allow them to feel connection in times of stress and difficulty. So today, I just want to put that out there straight away. We're going to talk to three key areas in which a great leader can pay attention. My suggestions to you are ridiculously practical in that regard. And those three areas are, first of all, in terms of your staff. So what are some of the handful of things you can do that foster positive connection when people are disparate? And then secondly, we're going to talk about parents and what are the things that you can do in a really creative way to reach your parents. I spoke before today. I had part of one of our programs we run is called the Inner Circle. It's for schools who have leaders who are leading the implementation of restorative practices. And I was speaking to the amazing Kelly Roberts this morning, and Kelly was talking about, we were talking about what is it that sort of gets your parents' attention, and we're talking about that thing about moving from a punitive to a restorative model, and how do you get parents to move away from that whole notion of, but there has to be a consequence. How do you deal with that? And we discussed that with parents, what we need to do is to try and get a greater return on investment for the effort we've gone to in communication. What we mean by that is that if you need to tell parents something, they're not particularly, as a generalization, they're not particularly into writing. And what I mean by that is that they're not reading your policies. So sending your parents your policy doesn't mean they get the policy. But Kelly and I discussed the notion of recording 2 or 3 2-minute videos and sending that out on multiple different channels, on the school's Facebook page, as a link in an app, as a text message link, and wondering if the conviction with which Kelly speaks is quite remarkable around this stuff. So if she's able to look down a screen and eyeball you and speak confidently to a particular concept, that will get their attention. Not only will it get their attention, it's almost also highly more likely that they will engage. When it comes to, for instance, a Facebook post, what we do know is that I think it's 7 times more likely that someone will engage in a Facebook post if there's a picture, and it's something like 16 times more likely that they will engage with a Facebook post if there's a video. So it's not just what you say, it's how you get that message out there that matters. And if we can do a little bit of that thinking as a parent, and then put the lens over that around connection, but that's what we're on about, connection, reduce anxiety, then we make our own work a lot easier as we move forward. And then there's a third one that I haven't really mentioned yet, and it's leadership of self in these circumstances. You're going to be incredibly important people, not only now, but later on. In fact, I think that now's the time that we need to kind of defer our some of our expertise and responsibility to health workers and to chief medical officers and to, dare I say it, to decision makers and politicians, and just see what they, let them do their thing. They're needed now. After the worst of this coronavirus pandemic has passed, we're going to be up at the plate, because we're going to be putting people back together. We're going to be putting community back together, and your ability to approach that task at your very best is going to be critical. So I'm going to give you a few out there suggestions that will allow you to get to that point where you are going to be most needed to our communities, with your tyres well and truly pumped up. Karen, I'm so delighted that you've got a remote PL day today. So you've got a whole bunch of your people on board, I think, today. That's absolutely fantastic. So let's get to work then. So when it comes to staff, what are we going to do? What are the little things you can do? So you've got the big intention here around staff. It's around a proactive way. It's about what can we do proactively? What could we do right now that would give us the biggest return of investment, so that people on your staff feel collectively connected and calm? So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of little things that you can do. As a leader, what can be incredibly valuable is your voice. So if you were able to say, I'm going to create a new habit here of calling one staff member a day just to check in, then that could be a useful thing to do. Sometimes we think about, how could I, but I haven't got time to call them all. Of course you don't, but you've got time to maybe call one a day. And if you schedule that in your diary and just say, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, that at 1:30, I make a quick phone call, and I try to keep that phone call under 10 minutes, then you can do that. It's achievable to call that one staff member. And sometimes we overestimate the value of connection. So we try to call people sometimes, and we try to arrange a lunch, or we try to get more people involved in the conversation. But a one-on-one conversation from someone who sends you the message that I've got this and that I see you is an incredibly powerful thing. To do things that are incredibly powerful that only cost you 10 minutes is smart leadership. So I really want to encourage you to step into that. Recording a weekly 2-minute video for staff can be really important too. Just because one of the things that's causing anxiety to your staff is things like in the media and, if I may say, from our politicians, mixed messages about what's going on with schools. The landscape keeps shifting, if not daily, then hourly. So if you're able to schedule and if you're able to let your people know that you are going to send out a 2-minute video that says, this is the lay of the land now. This is where we're at. This is what we're working on. This is what we're thinking about. This is what we're doing. This is what we're communicating. This is what I need from you. Then that's a great way to reassure people. Again, there's a temptation here. To choose, I guess there's a temptation to choose the wrong channel. As a leader, I used to send out a weekly, week ahead email. It tended to go out to my people in my school on a Sunday night that just said, this are the things that I need to keep in mind, all those kinds of things. This is what I'm thinking. This is what we're working on. This is what we have to do. These are our foci. And people really valued that. Because it helped them from an organisational perspective and a work-focused perspective. In times of crisis and emotion, people don't so much need emotion and work focus. Sorry, they don't so much need organisation and work focus. They need their emotions assuaged. And being able to eyeball you, even if it's a video, can be a really useful thing to do. Now, a lot of principals that I speak to go, oh, I can't stand the idea of videoing myself. And, it really bugs me. I just feel so uncomfortable. I have, unfortunately, a 3-word response to that. Get over it. Most of us as school leaders are quite good at chatting. Write down on a Post-it note the 2 things that you really want to say, one for 1 minute and one for another minute. Stick it on your screen. Download a really simple app like ScreenR or Voila, which will do the job for you, and get that video recorded. Get it out there. Published is better than perfect at this time. So what we want to do is get message out there, not worry about how good it is, not worry about how perfect it is. Your people will really appreciate that you went to the effort to get that done. Ask your exec team one curly question. I don't know about you, but I think that one of the things that's useful for me at the moment is distraction. There's only so much news I can take in around the coronavirus before it starts to depress me, before it starts to drag me down. Information is great weaponry, but too much, I just can't carry it. So distracting your team with one really important question can be really useful. We've written a book on that. I'm going to give you an opportunity to get a free copy of that book if you'd like it at the end, but it's full of 100 questions that you can use to distract your team. So for instance, if your exec team was going to have a movie made about them and their work at your school, which Hollywood actors would play your executive team members? And asking them that as an email and just getting a conversation thread going is a wonderful way to connect people in an enjoyable kind of way. I'm also going to, at the end of this webinar today, tell you about a really fun and humorous opportunity, but there's nothing that connects people better than a good belly laugh. And you being the person that instigates that belly laugh is something that they will pay great regard to. One of the things that I was talking to a few friends this week who are kind of the only, one of 1, 2 or 3 people who are on deck in schools at the moment. So if you are wandering around your school looking for something to do, then go and pop a welcome back treat or a welcome back message in pigeonholes now, so that when people do come back, they get that message from you as the first thing that happens when they walk into the school. If you can, handwrite on a Post-it note is an incredibly valuable. Handwriting is a fabulous way to emphasize to people that you went to trouble. I don't know about you, but when I get home from work and I open the letterbox as I get out of my car in the driveway, there's often 5 or 6 envelopes there for me to pick up. If one of them has my name handwritten on the front, that gets opened first. So typing things out, sending emails, reduce the personal touch. Handwriting and putting that message stuck to a Ferrero Rocher in a pigeonhole is something that people go, wow, that's a leader who's gone to trouble there. It's a great way of not only thinking about what could I do now, but what will my people need when they return in the future. So a fabulous way to keep your staff connected. A distraction, again, a really funky idea would be to jump on a website like Freelancer. We use at Real Schools Freelancer reasonably regularly to design banners and logos and flyers and that sort of work, and you can get it done really cheap. There's another one called Fiverr where you can get a lot of stuff done for just $5. It's Fiverr with 2 R's on the end. So remember that if you want to give that a go. But it's a great distraction to say, right, I've got a little project here and I've designed a new school logo. You could get it done really cheap, $5 or $10. And you send it out to people just to get comparison. Now, what you'll get from people back is, what's wrong with our current logo? I like our logo. And that's great feedback to know. So you need to let people know that you're not going to change the logo, but you're just throwing out there a wonderful distraction around, well, if we did, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of these 3 options? And it's a great way to have people connected around, not just something frivolous like who is going to play, play us in an executive thing. We did discuss that as a school once, which movie star is going to play us. I was highly offended because I thought Brad Pitt would be a really good selection for me, and when I was told that it would probably be John Candy, I was less wrapped about that. But it's a great way to bring them back to something that actually does make them think about what does their school stand for. A great thing that a leader can do, and this was stolen I've stolen this piece of advice from a fabulous school leader that I worked with in the Northern Territory called Greg Jarvis, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But Greg said to me one day that he tries every term to make a decision that gives people less to do. So he just says, okay, so often we think about what are we going to do? And Greg's thing was that once a term, he had to stop and go, what are we going to stop doing? What do we need to not do? For no other reason than there's not a particularly high return on investment on it, and my people would appreciate it. So think about one decision that you could make that would help them. Could you thank one staff member for something they did that you'd forgotten about? I reckon as a school leader, because we are by nature incredibly busy people, that it's useful occasionally to say, okay, well, I reckon because we're busy, we miss stuff. I reckon this is an opportunity where we've kind of got a little bit of navel gazing time to go, right, what have I missed? Who's somebody who did something that I didn't explicitly walk up to and say, that was awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. That helps an enormous amount. Get it done now. Get it done now. The great part about, thanking and congratulating, the important part about thanking and congratulating is that it's the only way to build trust in a team, in a relationship. In fact, when it comes even all the way down to some research around marriages, the strongest marriages don't tend to be the relationships that were the clearest about the rules. We basically declare the rules. Most people have some sort of ceremony where they declare the rules of marriage, and this is how we're going to treat each other forever and ever. Amen. It's the marriages that thank and congratulate each other for doing it that tend to have the longest lasting effect. So us taking the opportunity to thank and congratulate people, even if it's late, is a really fabulous way to sustain that relationship. This is a great time to plan a function on return to school that reminds staff about what matters most. I love the notion that myself and Marnie Richards, a fabulous business manager that I worked with for many years in the Northern Territory, we had a fabulous result in terms of our NAPLAN results, which isn't the be-all and end-all, but we had some good data there. But our staff became so fixated on the one bit of the data that was wrong, that was no good. Our Year 5 writing results dropped by 1 point. And they were going, how could that be? I'm going, sorry, can we just stop and notice that the 9 other categories have all had really marked improvements, and that's good. And what we did was we planned a function and we put the NAPLAN wins down as a placemat. So we had an A4 piece of paper, designed up to look pretty. I think we got some of the kids to even draw the data and make the graphs for us, and we laminated it and put it on the table and just had a function to sell it, because that's what matters in our school. What matters in our school is progress and improvement, and we wanted people to see the amazing progress and improvement they had made. We've been talking a little bit the last couple of days about when this is all over. I think that we'll end up with people in conversations like, that was a real wake-up call, that the most important thing in schools is, and then we're wondering what people will put in that gap. For you as a leader to be able to say, I know what goes in that gap, And when my people come back, that's what's going to happen. We're going to celebrate that, and we're going to bring that back into people's focus. That's important. And then if you could have a look around your staff at the people who often need the most encouragement are our newest to profession teachers. And if you can, so one of the things that's, that we battle with our grad teachers sometimes is that they're sort of the teachers that often come from the furthest back because they're new to the game. It makes sense. But they're also the teachers that make the greatest progress. So even though they're behind some other teachers who may have been, had a 20-year opportunity to hone their craft, they often have made more progress than that 20-year experienced teacher. Acknowledge it. Congratulate one of those staff members, write a personal note, record a video message, make a phone call that says, you know what, I had an opportunity to stop and think here, and what you've been doing so far is just awesome, just awesome. Go do more of that. I love it. Well done. And hang up. Don't let a problem creep into the conversation. Don't let a yeah, but creep into this conversation. Let the congratulations stand on its own. The next group that I want to talk about are parents. And I think that the frame we need to approach this conversation around parents through is this frame here around what it's really like for them at the moment. Sometimes we think our frame is how could I get my parents to be more cooperative with me? Or how could I get them to behave a certain way? I think that parent communication is the ultimate act of empathy. It's understanding what it's like for them, and their lounge rooms look a bit like this at the moment, particularly if you're in a jurisdiction where the students are at home now. If not, whether they're going into holidays or whether they're going into shutdown, their lounge rooms are going to look a bit like this at the moment. So the things that I want you to start to remember around are, first of all, the people who do it the toughest in these circumstances tend to be our sole parents. So they're amazing people. I think that when I look back over my career as a school leader, the parents that I tend to remember as being the most wonderful and supportive parents are often just, I think sometimes it's just my own personal lens, but they're the parents who are supportive despite the risk. And the parents who are on their own at the moment and are trying to find ways to juggle work and parental responsibility and their own emotions and health, and elderly parents themselves, they just need someone to say, like I've said a few times today, we see you, we see you. Send them a text message, that just says, hey, I hope you're going okay. Been thinking about you. If there's anything that you need to have a chat about, give me a call. Send your school send your school community the butterfly fable and ask what they think it means. Now, I want to encourage you to go and look up the butterfly fable. The butterfly fable is about a boy who's got a cocoon. He's got a caterpillar that becomes a cocoon, that puts itself in a cocoon, and then he notices that the butterfly is trying to emerge, but it's stuck. It's stuck. It can't get out. And so what he does is he runs off and gets a pair of scissors and he snips carefully at the cocoon so that the creature inside, the insect inside, can get out. But what happens when the creature gets out is that it just crawls around on the bottom of the page, on the bottom of the cage, not using its newly formed wings until it dies. And the fable behind it is that it emphasises really articulately, possibly a lot more articulately than I have today. It emphasises that the struggle is what's important. So the message that we want to get out to parents, and through story is a fabulous way to deliver message. The message we want to get out to parents is that this switch to online learning that so many schools are contemplating and navigating right now isn't meant to be easy. It isn't meant to be an easier way to get education done. Your kid will still battle with stuff, and that's deliberate. Taking learning online isn't about differentiating our students downwards into just receiving information without challenge. It should be tricky, it should be difficult, it should require cooperation, and it should require struggle, because otherwise their wings never work. And we want to get that message out there. I find the butterfly fable to be a useful way to put that out there in a way that people won't be offended. Put a reassuring message on any public signage that you have. I saw one the other day from a school that I was driving past, and it just said, it had no information about coronavirus, it had no information about shutdowns, it had no dates, it had no times on it. All it said was, remember to keep smiling, everyone. And I thought that is just what I needed to read today. So if you are able to use that frame of saying, what is it that we want a parent to drive by our school and see a sign out the front of the school and have it go, and have them go, that is exactly what I needed to read today. Go write that. Go write that. Posting something on social media that thanks a school council member is a great way to get people feeling that they need to thank you, Bianca, for letting me know that you have to get going. I really appreciate that. Posting something on social media thanking a school council member is a great way to foster a community of gratitude. And what you'll find is that gratitude snowballs. So you'll get other people to thank others. So encouraging a school council member to publicly thank staff is a useful thing to do. I had a principal the other day tell me that a school council chair handed her a letter that she wanted her to send immediately to all the staff members. And she thought, oh no. And then she read the letter and she went, oh, right. Wouldn't it be lovely if those parents in the school were given the opportunity, the encouragement to acknowledge the risk that so many educators are facing at the moment of still being open or having been open at a time when there is personal risk attached to being in front of a room full of 25 potential transmitters of this virus. Use your text messaging services to reassure rather than nag. One of my key criticisms of schools around Australia is that we use often text message services to nag, and it's because personally we do, and it works. The very best text message that I can get from my darling wife, Anthea, is the text message that says, it's a 2-word text message. It says, get milk. And I know that wherever I am, I need to grab that milk and bring it on the way home. And there's no excuse for not bringing that milk home. So so we're conditioned around text messages to do a little bit of nagging, but I want you to stop that in times of crisis. For instance, Anthea wouldn't nag me about get milk when I was driving home from a funeral of a family member. In crisis and in stress, we need to use all of our communication tools to reassure. So what I want you to do is to make sure that you use your communicative tools to do just that. This next one's, I know it's a little wacky, but I was talking to a preschool teacher who has an oversupply of toilet paper, and she went, I just feel so guilty. I just don't know what to do about this. And, I have to admit, she was doing a little bit of, if I get really stuck at home, I might just find a couple of those bags, getting in a couple of those rolls, finding their way into the boot of my car. But we agreed that while it might be, outside of policy and it might be an irregular thing to do, if you know that there's a family out there who are struggling and you can grab a few rolls of toilet paper and even drop it on their doorstep or just, hand it over to them in a shopping bag, that's an enormous act of empathy for people. And I encourage you to look for opportunities to show empathy that perhaps are outside of regulation. Eva, thank you so much. BigLifeJournal.com has lots of free resources for parents and students staying at home. Growth mindset. Right, good to know. Thank you, Eva. That's fabulous. The chat box can be just awesome for sharing those resources out there as well. I know of a school that's created an I Can Help notice board. So that's just a thread on their Facebook page where you might have somebody who can deliver stuff in your school community, and they're happy to do a bit of driving around and getting resources from one person to another. I know that some schools have got I Can Help notice boards for teachers and parents that have particular expertise. I know that one I Can Help that bobbed up was a parent said, I can help by reading stories. And so she's going to read a bedtime story to the community at 8 o'clock every night, just to arrange that, just to encourage regular routine for parents of that primary school, which I think is a great, sometimes people want to help, they just haven't got the vehicle. So giving them that opportunity can be really useful. And then arranging a weekly town hall. This is one that bobbed up the other day and that people really latched onto in my first webinar. And the town hall idea is saying we will arrange an online session like you're in now on Zoom, where, and I know that, of all the businesses that are going to the wall at the moment, Zoom's probably the one that you'd probably wish you had shares in, isn't it? Zoom use at the moment is out of control. And if you could set up a quick Zoom that says, I have no agenda, I'm not going to tell you anything, I'm just going to open it up and I'm going to let parents come in, I'm going to turn my webcam on, I'm going to encourage them to turn theirs on, and I'm going to say, what questions do you have? And if I've got them, I'm going to give you the answers. Now, it's a wonderful way for us not to assume what parents need, but to ask. At the moment, in the absence of the ability to walk up face to face and have a long conversation with you, finding a way to do that electronically can be really useful. And then finally, what I want to do today is to talk a little bit about, we've got some, I'm going to click through those so they can reappear again for you for some reason. We're going to talk a little bit about self and about how it is that you can do that self-leadership thing. So there's a few things here that I can think you can do that will stimulate you, that will allow you to feel that you've used this time productively to not just cope, but to grow, and that you can, like I said before, metaphorically show up when everyone comes back on and when your truly important work will begin, with your tyres pumped up. I'm wondering how many of you have seen Duolingo. It's a fabulous course to be able to help you learn a language. I used Duolingo before I went overseas with my family to just get the basics around French and Italian, because that's where we were heading. Relax about the Italian thing. It wasn't recently. And what you can do about it is two things. One is that it gives you something to brag about when you get back. It emphasizes to your community that I used this time for learning. And the other thing you can do is brag about your progress. So when you are sending messages out into the community, you can use the new words that you learned. Now, Duolingo requires you to do no more than 5 minutes a day. You can set timers on it that says, yes, I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock every night, or I'm going to do it at 6:30 every morning. And it allows you to practice the written and the verbal aspects of learning a language. Learning a language is obviously wonderful for brain development and synaptic connectivity in your brain. So just give it a crack. Give it a crack if that's something you think you can do to look after yourself. Change your office layout and look to include a discussion zone in it. So stand in your office and go, right, where is it in this? Often the architecture of the principal's office is something that hasn't changed an enormous amount over the years. There's often a large unwieldy desk in the middle of that space, dominating that space, screaming authority at people. And I've even had teachers who've sat in my office across from my desk and said they feel like they're the naughty kid all over again. Now, there's nothing about my demeanour that makes people feel that they're a naughty kid. I don't speak to people like that. I don't make people feel that way. But the architecture of my office did. So think about how you could create a layout in your office that includes a discussion zone. I love the notion of having 3 or 4 comfortable chairs placed roughly in a circle without a table in the middle, because that sends a message to people that the product here is not what we put on the table or what we write or what we formalise. The product, when we're in that discussion zone, is the discussion. The important part is the dialogue that we have. I want to really encourage you to give that a crack. Randomly call a superior. Often schools are bubbles. We struggle sometimes to see outside our bubble and to see what other schools are doing. We certainly struggle to see sometimes what our corporate supporters are doing. Your boss, your line manager, they're doing it tough at the moment as well. And while rightly we focus with great clarity and purpose on our immediate school community, they're trying to focus on multiple school communities. Check in on them, see how they're doing. Often those people have travel commitments. Often they have communication struggles. Often they feel disconnected themselves. And I also think that it's a wonderful career advancing move to stay sweet with the people who are above you on the operational hierarchy. If I was to recommend one book to you to get your head into in this space, it would be the one over the last probably 12, 18 months that has most impacted the way I work. And it's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. The book allows me to understand a framework for improving behaviour and culture for better outcomes. Now, if you look on the television lately, there's an app called, I think it's called Noom, that's a weight loss app geared around this very science, around the fact that we tend not to lose weight through some cataclysmic moment or enrolling in a program. We lose weight by changing tiny atomic-sized habits. Clear does a wonderful job of being able to help me to see the habits that are at play in a school or in my own organisation, in myself, and it allows me to see the easiest starting points to get progress. And it's that progress that's addictive to people, and that it allows them to really get into the notion of moving forward and getting better and better and better as we go. So if you haven't, I know that it was sent out to our principals as a principal's present. I think it was first half of last year. But if you haven't got it, highly recommend you jump on and grab that one. Another app that can make things easy for you. I for a while, I don't know about you, but I think that there's a habit, there you go. I think that there's a trait that exists amongst high performing educators, and that is that we're incredibly active of mind. And one of the things that I find difficult is to deactivate my mind. I find it personally challenging to slow down my thoughts. I find it hard to stop myself from thinking about the next thing to do. And I need to get better at it. For a while, I've had the intention, several years is that while, of learning to meditate so that I can calm my mind, because I know when I find a way to calm my mind that I do a good job of it. I do a better job. I work better. I communicate better. I connect with people better. I'm a nicer person to be around. I sleep better. There's an app by a friend of mine called Corey Mascara, and it's called Simple Habits. And I just want to recommend to you that it's, again, built on the Atomic Habits kind of idea. So you start your meditation with, about 90 seconds, I think it is on the first one. You set a timer, and it allows you to every day commit to a small improvement in being able to do that. Now, Corey's one of those guys who's gone and, put himself, through 6 months of silent meditation in a Nepalese retreat. So that's how far you can go with it. But the thing I love about what Corey's done is he's built a scaffold for us to start at the very, very lowest point. I think it's brilliant. Thank you, Anna Maria. There's a couple of other useful apps as well there that you can see in the. Anna Maria, I'm going to request that you might even like to cut and paste that again, because I reckon you've sent that to all panelists, and all the attendees, I reckon, need to see those little resources that you've put there as well. Great time to ask another principal or a school leader for some advice or some feedback. Like I said before, we often operate our schools as bubbles, and I think that it's useful to stick your head out of that bubble at times like this. So giving another principal a call and just saying, first of all, how you going? And then secondly, how do you reckon I'm going? Can be a really valuable thing to do while you've got this wonderful opportunity in front of you. My last two bits of advice are going to be confronting. See if you can go a day without touching your laptop. And I'm not talking about cheating because you've got Sunday already booked as a Netflix day, but I'm saying, can you pick a time that it would be difficult? Excuse me, just grabbing a quick drink. Can you pick a time that it would be difficult to not use your laptop, but do it anyway? And then I want to encourage you to be still. The last thing I want you to do as a principal is to just think about, can I schedule a time where I need to just do nothing, to just be, and that's all. Can you start that habit of being without thought, without action, so that when it's time for thought and action, you're more capable? I bet you can't. I bet that it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be really challenging to say, I'm going to put 2 hours aside just to sit in my garden. I'm not taking a book. I'm not taking a professional reading. I'm not taking a device. I'm just going to sit. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to feel the wind on my face. I'm going to smell what's around me. I'm going to hear what's around me, and I'm just going to be for a while. And I think that the act of doing that will be something that will put you in a place where you can do some really fabulous work. I've mentioned a few times, that fabulous work's going to be so needed as you move forward. So, hey, I've thrown about, I think something like 25 different bits of things that you can do around staff, parents and self that I think will be useful. Something that we have done, and Simon, I'm going to lean on you to help me out a little bit here, was we've tried to game this. So we've taken a whole bunch of these and a couple of others and put them together in what we're calling a principal shutdown bingo. And so there, Simon has pasted a link in there. So if you're interested in Shutdown Bingo, what I want you to do is click that link and you'll find in there a PDF that you'll be able to take and just tick them off. You know, as you get them done, you can tick them off and shout bingo at the end. And hopefully that's a way of gaming this so that you can feel a little bit of progress around it as well. So I made some promises to you about some other things that we're going to do. And the first thing I'm going to do is to give you some bad news. We had a whole bunch of tour dates for 3 events, 1 for teachers and 2 for leaders. One for teachers was around restorative classrooms, strong classrooms. For leaders, we had leading school culture, and then we had a short 2-hour seminar called Leading Whole School Behaviour Improvement. And sadly, the coronavirus has got us, and we've cancelled that, which is a bit of a bugger. But we've butted that and thought, how is it that we could bring this to people's attention? And what we're looking at the moment is the option of sunrise and sunset school. So this is our plan. I wanted to bring this to your attention because I need your opinion here. I need your feedback on this. We have said, okay, what if we divided the workshops into 4 one-hour online key learning modules, and we're going to run them later in the year. We're thinking maybe from, say, June to October, well spread out, as a sunrise school, which means we'll run them at 6 a.m, or a sunset school, which means we'll run those sessions at 7 p.m. We're going to provide a pre-reading for all of them that will come before every session to prime people so that you're not coming along with that awkwardness of, oh, I'll just sit and see what happens here. We're going to provide a 1-hour podcast between each session so that people have a chance to reconnect with those key concepts. We're going to build a connective online platform for anyone. So for instance, if you enroll any of your people in the Restorative Classroom, Strong Classrooms course, then what we'll do is create an online platform on something like Facebook where they are able to connect and share resources and decisions and challenges. We're going to provide all the slide decks and all the workbooks and all the sheets that we would have used if we were face-to-face to those people, so they can use them even in their school if they want to without any copyright restrictions. And we're thinking that if we costed that at around $185 per student and ran it from, say, June to October, per student, per participant, that people might think that that's a useful thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I need your feedback on this idea, if that's okay. So what I'm going to do is to launch a poll where hopefully you can tell me, what do you reckon? So does that notion of sunrise school work for you? Does the notion of sunset school sound better to you? Do you think this is the stupidest thing we've ever done? Or do you just go, you know what, I love the idea of this and don't care what it is, I would offer a little bit to people in my school or get involved myself. So I know that we've got quite a few people online here, and if you would really, you'd be doing me a solid. You'd be really helping me out here by giving me some feedback here, so that we know whether this is something that we should that we should get stuck into. So I'm just going to give people a few minutes. Often when we do a poll online in a platform like Zoom or GoToWebinar, you don't sort of get real veracity around your results until you've got about 80% of people who've decided to vote. Yeah, I think that's possible, Anna Maria, that we would record as much as possible as we can of this kind of work. Just going to give people another 30 seconds or so. Got a bit of a theme emerging here, which is really useful to us. So thank you. All right, that's good. 10 seconds, I reckon, folks. Just give me one. Just give me whatever's on your mind. And then, this being my first poll, I'll hope that I share this the right way and that this works. Okay, I'm going to end the poll there. And if I share the results, you can see there that most people are saying that they think the idea is good. All right, so that's great. I want to acknowledge that I really appreciate the person that said this is the dumbest idea ever, because it's not for everyone. We get that. We're trying to do innovative and different things that try and help. So I really appreciate you taking the trouble to let us know. We need genuine feedback on that, but it seems that we've got something there that people would be interested in. That's fabulous. I'm going to close that poll and hope that it's off your screen now. Hey, the next webinar we're going to run is Simon's running this one on human behaviour. Oh man, I'm a shocking people watcher, and I just love it. I'm obsessed by it, and knowing the rules and the patterns by which people behave, particularly at times of negative affect, at times of stress, can be so useful to be able to look at people's behaviour and go, that's what that's all about, is for me incredibly empowering, because then I'm not just dealing with the surface level of their emotion. I'm not just dealing with the surface level of my own emotion, but I have a framework for understanding it. Simon's ability to communicate some really strong and sound research around the brain is something that I think that you'll get enormous benefit out of, and I think that your teachers will too. So what I want you to do when we follow up from this email is from this webinar, we're going to send you a follow-up email that'll have the link in there to be able to register for this. I think that it would be one more dot point on the staff slide that I included today would be send them the registration link for this webinar. I think that they'll get an enormous amount out of it, and they're going to navigate some really interesting human emotions, both online and in person in the coming days, weeks and months. Skilling them up for that would be a really important thing to do. If you do want to chat, then I'm here for that. We're running School Culture Hood Lifts. If you look on anywhere of our channels, you'll see the link to be able to register straight away. It's just a 20-minute chat. I just find that I've spoken to so many people. I've run a few hood lifts already this week, even though we only launched this a few days ago. I just think that sometimes when you sit in a school leadership position, you're not looking for strategy as much as you are looking for someone to talk to. And I really want to be that person at this time. There's zero strings. You are not going to be sold anything. We're just going to talk about what's going on with your school at the moment, how people are handling it, and we're going to try and put some tools and tips and strategies in your hands that will help you to be able to navigate that beautiful yet horrible human landscape. So if you want to make that happen, then by all means, please make sure that you click on the link to get that done. Hey, I mentioned earlier today the curly questions, and Jason, thanks for letting me know you've got to sneak out, mate. Before you do, sorry, I couldn't find the link. Sorry, I need a link for that. So Eva, I'm just wondering if one of my people in the background would be able to find the link very quickly for the School Culture Hood Lifts. And if you can pop that in the webinar chat quickly before we finish up, that would be really useful. Thanks, guys. I mentioned before asking a curly question. Now, we sell this book for $19.95, but we've got a commitment going at the moment that nothing that we do in this pre-shutdown period or current shutdown period can be charged for. So if you would like a copy of this Real Questions for Real School Leaders, 100 questions that you can use to achieve school awareness, then you're going to get that for free. All you need to do in the chat box now is write the word book. That's all you need to do. Chris will follow up with you to find out your address, and we're going to post a copy of that in the mail to you very, very quickly. So just put the word book, we send it to you, done, transaction complete. Amy has posted the link for the hood lifts as well. So just make sure that you grab that as well before you get out of here. So yeah, if you want to be booked, then just write the word book and we're going to get that to you pronto. I like the Facebook page. We've had such an incredible response online through this and suggested to your people. We're promoting everything we're doing. So for instance, the recording of the webinar today, in a couple of days' time, that will get posted on the Facebook page. So I really want to encourage you to get in there. That way you can tag people in them and you can make sure that these resources get shared wide and far. And my final bit for you today is to encourage you to stay in touch and to reach out if we can help. That email address there, info@realschools.com.au. If there's anything you need, just holler. We're happy to help in any way that we possibly can. And I'm just going to do my final check of the chat box. My final chat of the attendee list. Is there anyone with a hand up who wants to talk? Okay. If that's the case, I'm going to let you all off the hook. All right, fabulous. I'm so pleased to see so many people putting the word book in there. Okay, we really want to get that out there and let you have it. I think you'll enjoy that one, which is really cool thing. Thank you so much for putting your time aside and for coming along. I hope that was useful. Anna Maria says it was useful, and that's good enough for me. So if we can help in any way, please you holler, and we'll see you at the next webinars. Between now and then, why don't you all just go and have a really good, relaxing weekend with the fam. I just noticed the Q&A box, Mitch. I don't look at this often enough. Those postcards that we had, we'd love to get and purchase some so we could write our staff some personal messages over the line. Mitch, we're going to make that happen, mate. Can you send an email to info@realschools.com.au just with a postcard? Just put postcard request. Let me know how many you want, mate. We'll put them in the mail. We'll make it happen. Simon's already followed up on that, so I need to know how to use Zoom a little better. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.